My name is Claire, and at the time this happened I was 42 years old. I lived alone in a small apartment about 20 minutes from my parents' house. I worked as an office manager for a local dental practice. It was not glamorous work, but I liked it. I liked having a routine. I liked knowing where things belonged. My life was quiet. Maybe too quiet, some people would say. I had been married once. His name was Daniel. We were married for 11 years before we finally admitted that loving each other was not enough to keep us happy. There was no terrible betrayal. No dramatic goodbye. We had simply become two tired people living in the same house. After the divorce, Daniel moved to another state. We stayed polite. We spoke once in a while. I wished him well. Then I moved into my apartment and began again. My family thought I was lonely. Maybe I was sometimes. But being alone and being lonely are not always the same thing. I had friends. I had work. I had a little balcony where I grew herbs badly. I had a neighbor named Mrs. Patel who knocked on my door whenever she made too much food. I had a life. It just did not look like Caroline's. Caroline was my younger sister by 3 years. She was beautiful, confident, and always seemed to know exactly what she wanted. She married a successful real estate developer named Marcus. They lived in a large home with tall windows and a kitchen bigger than my entire apartment. They had 2 children. They went on vacations. They hosted parties. And whenever my parents talked about Caroline, there was a special brightness in their voices. Caroline is so busy. Caroline has done so well. Caroline and Marcus are thinking about buying another property. I used to smile and listen. I loved my sister. At least I wanted to. But loving someone and feeling close to them are different things too. When we were children, Caroline and I had been close. We shared a bedroom until I was 12. We made forts out of blankets. We whispered at night about boys at school and teachers we did not like. Back then, she was my little sister. I protected her. When she cried, I was the one who brought her water. When she got scared during thunderstorms, she climbed into my bed. But as we grew older, something changed. Caroline became the person everyone noticed. And I became the person who helped. At family gatherings, I set the table. I helped my mother cook. I watched the children. I cleaned after everyone left. Nobody asked me to do these things directly. That was the strange part. I simply knew that if I did not, they would not get done. And after a while, people begin to expect what you always give freely. That was how it happened with my family. I became dependable. And somehow, being dependable became the same as being invisible. My parents were not cruel people. I want to be fair about that. My father, Richard, had worked most of his life as an accountant. He believed in hard work, saving money, and not complaining. My mother, Elaine, had been a teacher before she retired. They loved us both. I believe that. But love is not always equal in the way it is shown. Caroline was exciting. I was reliable. Caroline needed help with her busy life. I was expected to manage my own. And because I rarely asked for much, my family decided I did not need much. The truth was I had needed things. Not money. Not expensive gifts. I needed someone to notice when I was tired. I needed someone to ask how I was doing and wait for the real answer. I needed my family to understand that the quiet person in the room still has a heart. But I had never learned how to say those things. So I stayed quiet. Thanksgiving had always been important in our family. My mother loved the tradition of it. She began cooking early in the morning. Turkey in the oven. Potatoes boiling. The smell of butter and herbs filling the house. As children, Caroline and I would wake up and run downstairs. As adults, we arrived with desserts and side dishes. At least that was what Caroline did. I arrived early. I helped. That particular Thanksgiving, I had spent most of the morning at my parents' house. My mother had asked me to come at 10. Just to help with a few things, she said. A few things turned into 6 hours. I chopped vegetables. I peeled potatoes. I set the table. I went to the store because my father forgot cranberry sauce. At one point, my mother stood in the kitchen doorway and looked around. I don't know what I'd do without you, she said. I smiled. And I meant it when I said, you'd be fine. But a small part of me wished she would say something else. Something like, sit down. You've done enough. She never did. Caroline arrived at 4:30 with Marcus and the children. They were already dressed beautifully. Caroline wore a cream-colored sweater and gold earrings. Her hair looked perfect. Her children ran through the hallway carrying little toys. My mother hugged them all. "Oh, there they are," she said, as if the celebration could finally begin. I was standing at the kitchen counter with flour on my shirt. Caroline kissed my cheek. "You're already working? I've been here all day." She laughed. "Of course you have." I laughed too. That was the thing about family. Sometimes they tell you who you are, and you laugh because you do not know what else to do. Dinner was lovely on the surface. The food was good. The children were happy. My father told one of his old stories twice. We sat around the long dining table. I sat near the end. Caroline sat beside my mother. I noticed it because I always notice small things. The person closest to the center usually gets heard the most. After dinner, my mother brought out dessert. Then, unexpectedly, she said she had one more surprise. I remember feeling confused. Thanksgiving was not Christmas. We did not usually exchange gifts. But she walked toward the living room and came back carrying 2 envelopes. One was large and decorated with a gold ribbon. The other was small and plain. You already know which one was mine. My mother handed the large envelope to Caroline. Everyone watched as she opened it. Inside was the cruise package. For a moment, Caroline stared at it. Then she screamed. Not loudly. Not wildly. Just with surprise. "Oh my goodness, Mom." Everyone clapped. Marcus stood up and hugged my parents. The children began asking where the Caribbean was. My father smiled proudly. "We thought you and Marcus deserved some time away." Caroline's eyes filled with tears. "You shouldn't have." But everyone knew she loved it. Then my mother looked at me. "Claire," she said. "Your turn." She handed me the small envelope. I opened it. Inside was a $2 lottery ticket. For a second I thought maybe there was something else. There was not. I looked at my mother. She smiled. "It's the big jackpot this week." My brother-in-law laughed. "Well, if Claire wins, we'll all be coming to her house for Thanksgiving next year." My father laughed. My sister laughed. And then, because I did not want to be the only person sitting there with a serious face, I laughed too. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll buy the turkey." Everyone laughed again. But inside something had gone quiet. I folded the ticket and put it in my purse. Then I helped clear the plates. Because of course I did. For the rest of the evening I tried to convince myself that I was being too sensitive. Maybe my parents really could not afford 2 cruise packages. Maybe the lottery ticket was simply meant to be fun. Maybe I should be grateful that they had given me anything at all. I had spent years explaining my family's behavior to myself. That was one of my talents. I could take something painful and turn it into something reasonable. I could tell myself that my mother was tired. That my father did not mean what he said. That Caroline was busy. That nobody was trying to hurt me. And maybe nobody was. But neglect can hurt even when it is not planned. Around 7 o'clock, I went into the kitchen to wash a few glasses. My mother followed me. "You don't have to do that," she said. I almost laughed. It was one of the first times all day she had told me that. I looked at her. "Are you happy with your cruise?" She smiled. "Caroline deserves it. She has been under so much pressure." I turned the faucet on. "I'm sure she has." My mother stood beside me for a moment. Then she said, "And you got something too." I looked at her. She was smiling. I knew she was trying to make a joke. "Maybe I'll win." "Exactly," she said. "Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something?" I smiled again. But when she left the kitchen, I stood there with my hands under the warm water and felt strangely tired. Not angry, just tired. I thought about all the times I had been told that Caroline deserved something because she was busy, because she had children, because she had responsibilities. I had responsibilities too. They simply did not look as impressive. I had no children, no husband, no large house, no stories that made people stop and listen. I paid my bills. I went to work. I visited my parents. I helped when they needed me. And perhaps that was the problem. My life was always available to them. After dessert, the family moved into the living room. The television was on quietly in the background. The children played on the floor. Caroline and Marcus sat together on the sofa, looking at pictures of the cruise ship. I sat in my usual chair near the window. My father was flipping through television channels when a local news program came on. The lottery drawing was scheduled for later that evening. My brother-in-law pointed at me. "Claire, don't forget your big night." Everyone laughed again. I reached into my purse and touched the ticket. "I won't." My sister leaned over. "Can I see it?" I handed it to her. She looked at the numbers. "Keep this safe," she said. "You never know." Then she gave it back. For one strange second her voice sounded serious. I looked down at the ticket. The jackpot was $100 million. I had never even thought seriously about having that kind of money. I sometimes bought a ticket when the jackpot was large. But I never expected anything. Most people do not. I put the ticket back into my purse and forgot about it. At least I tried to. The evening slowly moved forward. People began putting on coats. The children were getting sleepy. My father was discussing football with Marcus. My mother was packing leftovers into containers. I helped, of course. As I stood at the kitchen counter, Caroline came in. She leaned beside me. "Are you okay?" I looked at her. "Why wouldn't I be?" She hesitated. "I don't know. You seem quiet." I almost told her. I almost said, "I feel like I have spent my whole life watching everyone celebrate you." But I did not. Instead I said, "I'm tired." She nodded. "You should take better care of yourself." There was no cruelty in her voice. That somehow made it worse. She did not understand. How could she? She had never needed to notice. Around 9:30, the news program announced that the lottery numbers would be drawn soon. My brother-in-law called from the living room. "Claire, your moment has arrived." I walked in slowly. "Don't spend it all at once," my father said. Everyone laughed. I sat down. The numbers appeared one at a time. The first number matched. I looked at my ticket. I felt a little jolt in my chest. Then the second number matched. I leaned forward. My sister looked at me. "What?" I did not answer. The third number matched. My hands began to shake. "Claire," my mother said. I looked at her. "I think." Then I stopped. The fourth number matched. The room grew quiet. My brother-in-law stood up. "Wait." The fifth number matched. I could hear the television announcer speaking, but suddenly the sound felt far away. My father came closer. "Let me see that." I handed him the ticket. He compared it to the screen. Once, then again. Then the final number appeared. And for several seconds nobody spoke. My father looked at me. I remember his face more clearly than anything else. He was pale. "What?" my mother whispered. My father slowly lowered the ticket. "I think she won." Nobody moved. Caroline laughed nervously. "What do you mean she won?" My father looked at the television, then at the ticket. "Claire won." My brother-in-law grabbed his phone. My mother sat down. Caroline stared at me, and I just sat there. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not jump up. $100 million did not feel real. It was simply a number, too large to hold in my mind. My sister came toward me. "Claire." I looked at her. "Yeah, you won." I nodded, and then everyone began speaking at once. My mother was crying. My father was telling me not to move. My brother-in-law was searching online. Caroline hugged me so tightly that I could barely breathe. "You won," she kept saying. "Oh my God, Claire, you won." I remember thinking how strange it was. An hour earlier everyone had laughed at that ticket. Now everyone was looking at it like it was the most important thing in the room. And I suddenly understood something I had not expected to learn that night. The ticket had not changed. Only its value had. And somehow so had I. The days after the lottery win were quieter than I expected. That was the first surprise. I had imagined that winning $100 million would feel like fireworks. Instead, I spent the next morning sitting at my small kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee. The ticket was locked in a safe place. I had contacted a lawyer. I had contacted a financial advisor. I had done everything carefully. My father insisted on helping. "I know people," he said. But for once I told him no. Not because I hated him. I simply wanted one decision in my life to belong completely to me. That was difficult for my family to understand. Within days, everyone seemed to have an idea. My mother wanted me to move into a safer neighborhood. My father thought I should invest most of the money. My brother-in-law had a business opportunity he wanted to explain. Caroline talked about how exciting it would be if we traveled together. And each time someone spoke, I listened. I had always been good at listening. But something inside me had changed. For the first time, I wondered what I wanted. Not what my parents thought was best. Not what would make the family happy. Not what would make me seem generous or grateful. What did I want? I did not know. That question frightened me more than the money. A week after Thanksgiving, my parents invited me to dinner. Just the three of us. I knew something was coming. Parents do not suddenly invite the quiet child to dinner, unless they have something important to say. I arrived with a bottle of wine. My mother had made my favorite chicken dish. For a moment I felt like a child again. We sat at the table. Everything was calm. Too calm. Then my father cleared his throat. "Claire," he said. "Your mother and I have been thinking." I smiled slightly. "I'm sure you have." He ignored that. "You need a plan." "I have one. You've only had the money for a week. And I've already spoken to professionals." My mother reached across the table. "We just want to help." I looked at her hand. "I know." My father sighed. "You should understand that money can disappear quickly." "I understand. And people may take advantage of you." That sentence stayed with me. People may take advantage of you. I looked at my father. "Do you think I can't handle this?" "No," he said quickly. "I think you've never had to deal with this kind of thing." Maybe that was true. But I had dealt with other things. I had dealt with divorce. I had dealt with being overlooked. I had dealt with taking care of people who rarely noticed. Just because I had not had millions of dollars did not mean I had never made difficult choices. I took a breath. "I appreciate your concern. But I'm going to make my own decisions." My father leaned back. For the first time in a long time, I saw disappointment on his face. And strangely, I did not rush to fix it. That was new for me. The following week, Caroline came to visit. She had never been to my apartment alone before. That realization bothered me when I thought about it. We had spent our childhood together. But somehow she had never really entered my adult life. She brought coffee and sat on my sofa. For a while we talked about ordinary things. Then she looked at me carefully. "Mom says you've been difficult." I laughed softly. "Of course she does." Caroline frowned. "Claire, I'm sorry. That wasn't fair." She took a breath. "I know this is overwhelming. I just don't want you to push everyone away." I looked at my sister, the person I had once shared everything with. "Do you think I'm pushing people away?" She looked uncomfortable. "I think you're different." I nodded. "I am." She waited. So I continued. "For the first time in my life, everyone is asking what I want." Caroline looked down. "That's not true." I gave her a small smile. "You don't know that it is." She was quiet. And then very softly she said, "You really think we haven't cared about you?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect her. That was what I always did. But the money had given me something unexpected. It had given me time. I did not have to rush to make anyone comfortable anymore. So I told the truth. "I think you care about me. I don't think you see me." Her eyes filled with tears. I had not expected that. "I see you," she said. I shook my head gently. "You see the version of me that helps you." She looked hurt, and immediately I felt guilty. But guilt is not always a sign that you are wrong. Sometimes it is simply the feeling you get when you finally stop doing what people expect. Caroline sat quietly for a long time. Then she said, "I'm sorry." I looked at her. I did not forgive her immediately. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I wanted to understand what I was feeling. So I simply said, "Thank you." After she left, I stood at the window. The sky was gray. Cars moved slowly below. And for the first time I cried. Not because I was rich. Not because I was sad. I cried because I had spent so much of my life believing that if I was useful enough, people would eventually see me. But being useful is not the same as being loved. And even love is not enough if it is never shown. A few days later, something happened that changed everything again. My mother called. She sounded upset. "Claire, your father and I need to talk to you." I felt my stomach tighten. "About what?" "It's better in person." When I arrived at their house, Caroline was there too. So was Marcus. That was when I knew this was not a simple conversation. We sat in the living room. My father had papers on the coffee table. I looked at them. What is this? My father folded his hands. We've been talking about how the family should move forward. I stared at him. The family. He nodded. You have more money than you could ever spend. There it was. The sentence I had been waiting for. I looked around the room. My mother would not meet my eyes. Caroline looked nervous. Marcus stared at the floor. My father continued. We think it would be wise to create a family trust. I asked, with my money? Well, technically, yes. But it would protect everyone. I felt very calm. Too calm. What exactly are you asking me to do? My father explained. He wanted me to put a large part of my money into a trust that would support my parents, Caroline's children, and future family needs. He spoke about responsibility. He spoke about legacy. He spoke about how lucky I was. Then he said something that finally broke through the calm. You don't have children, Claire. Caroline does. The room became silent. I looked at him. And for the first time in my life, I did not search for an excuse for him. I did not explain it away. I simply heard what he had said. You don't have children. Caroline does. Therefore, her life mattered more. Her needs mattered more. Her future mattered more. My hands were resting in my lap. I remember looking down at them. Then I looked at my father. You're right, I said. He seemed surprised. I don't have children. My mother whispered. Claire. I continued. And that has nothing to do with what I do with my money. My father's face changed. Don't be selfish. I almost laughed. Selfish. After all those years of giving my time, my energy, my help. Now that I had something nobody could take without my permission, I was selfish for wanting to decide. I stood up. I think I should go. My mother began crying. Please don't leave angry. I'm not angry. And that was true. I was heartbroken. But heartbreak is quieter than anger. I walked toward the door. My father called my name. I turned. He looked suddenly older. We're your family. I nodded. Yes. Then I said the words I had waited my whole life to say. And I am part of this family too. I left. Outside it was raining. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes before driving home. That night I made my first decision with the money. Not about investments. Not about houses. Not about vacations. I decided I would no longer use money to buy the love I had wanted for free. The next few months were difficult. Money does not solve family problems. Sometimes it simply makes them easier to see. I kept my distance from my parents for a while. Not completely. I answered calls. I replied to messages. But I stopped rushing over whenever someone needed something. I stopped offering help before anyone asked. And I stopped apologizing for having boundaries. At first, my mother did not understand. She called me one evening. You never come around anymore. I took a breath. You can come to my place too. She was quiet. That had apparently never occurred to her. A week later she came. She sat on my sofa and looked around my small apartment. The same apartment I had lived in for years. This is nice, she said. I smiled. Thank you. She looked embarrassed. I've never really spent much time here. No. She touched the arm of the sofa. Then she said something that surprised me. I think I always thought you liked being alone. I looked at her. I do like being alone. She nodded slowly. But I never said I wanted to be forgotten. My mother began to cry. And because she was my mother, a part of me wanted to comfort her immediately. But I sat still. Sometimes people need to feel the sadness they helped create. That does not mean you hate them. It simply means you stop carrying every emotion for them. My mother apologized. Not perfectly. Real apologies rarely are. She said she had not realized how often she depended on me without asking what I needed. She said she had treated my quietness as proof that I was fine. Then she said something I had needed to hear for a long time. You deserved better from us. I cried then. We both did. I did not say everything was fixed. It was not. But it was a beginning. My father took longer. Pride can be a difficult thing. For months our conversations stayed polite. Then one afternoon he called me and asked if I wanted to have lunch. I almost said no, but something told me to go. We met at a small diner near his office. He ordered coffee. I ordered tea. For a while he talked about nothing important. The weather, traffic, a neighbor who had sold his house. Then he looked at me. I was wrong. I waited. He stared at his coffee. I treated your money like it belonged to the family. I nodded. Yes. He looked up. And I treated you like your life mattered less because you had fewer responsibilities. My throat tightened. He continued. I think I got used to seeing you as the strong one. That sentence stayed with me. The strong one. It sounded like a compliment. But I had learned that sometimes people call you strong because they do not want to imagine what it would mean to help you. My father seemed to understand that now. I should have asked what you wanted, he said. Yes. I did not make it easy for him. I did not rush to say, it's okay, because it had not been okay. But I reached across the table and touched his hand. That was enough. Over time I began making decisions about the money. I bought a house. Not a mansion. Not a place with more rooms than I could use. I bought a comfortable house with a porch and a small garden. For the first time in my life, I had a kitchen large enough for more than one person to stand in. I hired a financial team I trusted. I invested carefully. I gave some money to charity. I also started a small local fund for women who were leaving difficult marriages or starting over after financial hardship. I did not tell many people about it. I did not want attention. I simply remembered what it felt like to begin again with very little certainty. I did not give my family unlimited access to my money. That was difficult, but it was necessary. I did help my parents in ways that felt right to me. I paid for repairs they had needed for years. I made sure they would be comfortable as they got older. I set aside money for my niece and nephew's education, but I did it on my terms. Not because I was trying to prove I was generous, and not because I believed I owed anyone. I did it because I wanted to. That difference mattered. Caroline and I slowly found our way back to each other. One afternoon she invited me to lunch. She looked nervous when I arrived. I want to tell you something, she said. I sat down. She took a deep breath. I hated that lottery ticket. I looked at her. She laughed sadly. Not because you won. Before that. I understood. She continued. I knew it was a terrible gift. My heart hurt. Then why didn't you say anything? She looked down. Because I didn't want Mom and Dad to think I was ungrateful about the cruise. There it was. Caroline had been trapped in the family too. Just in a different way. She had been the favorite. But being the favorite comes with expectations. She had learned to accept praise. I had learned to accept being overlooked. Neither of us had challenged the roles. Until that night. I'm sorry, she said again. This time I believed her. I should have said something. Yes, I said. She smiled weakly. You really are different now. I smiled. Maybe I'm just louder. We both laughed. And for the first time in years it felt like we were sisters again. Not perfectly. Not like children. But honestly. One day, months later, Caroline showed me the cruise photographs. She had taken the trip after all. She and Marcus had gone during the spring. I looked at the pictures. Beautiful water. Bright sun. Smiling faces. I'm glad you went, I told her. She looked surprised. Really? Of course. She nodded. I used to think you were jealous of me. I considered that. Sometimes I was. She looked embarrassed. But not because of your house or your vacations, I added. I was jealous because people seemed to notice you. Caroline became quiet. Then she reached across the table and held my hand. I notice you now. I believe she was trying. And sometimes trying is where healing begins. Thanksgiving came again the following year. My mother asked me to host. I almost said no. But I surprised myself. I said yes. Not because I wanted to prove anything. I simply wanted to create a different kind of day. Everyone arrived at my house in the afternoon. My mother brought dessert. My father brought wine. Caroline and Marcus brought the children. The house was warm. The kitchen smelled like turkey and herbs. For a while I stood back and watched everyone. My family was still my family. My father still repeated stories. My mother still worried too much. Caroline still spoke quickly when she was excited. The children still made a mess. Nothing was perfect, but something was different. This time I was not working alone in the kitchen. When my mother saw me carrying plates, she stood up. "Sit down," she said. "You've done enough." I looked at her. Then I smiled. It was such a small sentence, but it meant more than she knew. After dinner, we sat in the living room. My niece came to sit beside me. She was old enough now to remember the previous Thanksgiving. "Aunt Claire," she whispered, "did you really win $100 million? I smiled. "I did." "Was it scary?" I thought about that. "Yes." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because sometimes getting what you think will make everything better shows you what was wrong all along." She was too young to understand, but she nodded anyway. Children often understand more than we think. Before the evening ended, my mother handed me a small gift. Everyone looked at her. I laughed. "What is this?" She smiled nervously. "Open it." Inside was a photograph. It was old. Caroline and I were children, standing in front of our parents' house. I was holding her hand. We were both smiling. On the back, my mother had written a few words. "For the daughter who always held everyone together. We are learning to hold you too." I could not speak for a moment. My mother looked worried. "Do you like it?" I nodded. Then I hugged her. And this time I did not feel invisible. People often ask me what it felt like to win $100 million. They want to know what I bought first. They want to know if I quit my job. They want to know if I ever worried about people loving me only because I was rich. The answer to that last question is yes. Of course I worried. Money changes the way people look at you. But if I am honest, my family had already taught me something important before the money ever arrived. People can love you and still fail to see you. People can need you and still take you for granted. People can call you strong when what they really mean is that they have become comfortable leaving you alone with your pain. The lottery did not teach me that. It simply gave me enough distance to finally admit it. I did not become a different person because I won. I was still Claire. I still liked quiet mornings. I still forgot to water my plants. I still preferred staying home to large parties. The money did not make me more valuable. It only made people around me behave as if I was. And that was one of the hardest lessons of all. My worth had never been in the ticket. It had been there when I was sitting at my parents' table, laughing along with everyone else. It had been there when I spent all day cooking. It had been there when I came to help without being asked. It had been there when I went home alone and wondered why being the good daughter felt so lonely. The ticket did not create my value. It only revealed how easily other people had forgotten it. These days, I try not to hold on to bitterness. I am not interested in punishing my family. We have all changed. My parents are older now. My father calls me more often. Sometimes he asks for advice, which still makes me smile. My mother visits my house and actually stays for coffee. Caroline and I are closer than we have been in years. We still disagree. We still have old habits. But now we speak. That matters. And sometimes when Thanksgiving comes around, my family still jokes about the $2 lottery ticket. My father will say, "That was the most expensive gift we ever gave." Everyone laughs. And now I can laugh too. But I always keep the truth close to my heart. Because that night was never really about the money. It was about the moment I stopped laughing at something that hurt me. It was about the moment I stopped pretending I needed nothing. And it was about the moment I finally understood that quiet strength does not mean accepting whatever people give you. You can be kind and still say no. You can forgive and still remember. You can love your family and still ask them to treat you better. And sometimes the greatest gift life gives you is not the thing that changes your bank account. Sometimes it is the moment you realize you were valuable long before anyone else noticed. So if you have ever been the quiet one in your family, the one who helps, the one who understands, the one who gets the smallest gift and is expected to smile, please remember this. You do not have to win a lottery to deserve more. You do not have to become successful for people to respect you. You do not have to earn the right to take up space. Your voice matters even when it is soft. Your needs matter even when you are capable of handling them alone. And your heart deserves to be noticed before it has something valuable to offer. That Thanksgiving, my family laughed at my $2 gift. Later, the numbers were called. And yes, everything changed. But not because I became rich. Everything changed because I finally stopped measuring my worth by the way other people treated me. And once I learned that, I knew I would never feel small again.